Hello lovely people, it's Nicola back in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room. We've got a bit of everything for you today. There's been some knitting, some crochet, some sewing, and stabbing my finger with a pin and stepping on a pin and perforating my toe. It's been a good day. So I just want to start with the skirt because I had started cutting that out at the end of the last vlog. I've got it on my dress form here, and I've done a separate little bit of film which I'll insert. I finished the skirt from the book Weekend Sewing. Maybe not quite as long as I would have liked. I could have made it longer. But it's a wraparound skirt. I can find where the wrap is. So here is the front edge. See what I mean about when I mentioned last time about what looks like faces on here? And they're all the same way up, so I think it's a one-way print. So here's my wrap. The overlap isn't huge. But it works, and it wraps and ties at the back. See how little fabric there is on this tie? And that's with my attempts to lengthen them from what the pattern said. So it's quite pretty. I think it'll look good with a black t-shirt. Hopefully I'll get some wear out of it. It's from a pattern in this book. It's called Weekend Sewing, and it's by Heather Ross. I'm going to have a little whinge about certain parts of the instructions. So in her modelled shots of the skirt, you don't really see it in its entirety, which is an issue. And the instructions in the pattern don't necessarily seem to jibe in places, because at one point the text says that the right tie is supposed to be longer than the left, and when I cut them out, the left one was longer than the right. Thankfully, before I had sewn it all together, I also realized that the ties were going to be far too short. Now there's two sizes here. The extra large to extra large, there's only two sizes. So the small medium, it says fits waist 24 to 30, length is 28 inches. Large extra large fits 31 to 40 with a length of 30 inches. Nope. My waist is bang in the middle of the large extra large. It's not on the upper end or anything. But when I did a little dry run of the waistband with the ties attached to it, it would barely have tied. So I ended up just freehanding two completely different ties that started at 3 inches, ended at 2 inches, and had straight ends, because I couldn't figure out with hers whether the pointy ends were supposed to go at the top and then curve down, or at the bottom and then curve up. The hand-drawn instructions are inadequate, I have to say. So if you're a beginner, I won't recommend this book. Even though the patterns look really simple, I think they've been oversimplified to the point where they are incomprehensible. Sorry to say. So I'm not going to recommend this book. Unless you want to get it out of your local library, which is what I did before I bought it, and I liked it. I liked the look of it and bought it. I did make some pajamas out of it, and again, the pajamas, I can never tell when I'm putting them on which is the front and the back, because they don't have a very deep crotch curve on the butt side of things. So they don't have enough room in the butt to make it actually seem like, yes, when I hold them up, this is the front, this is the back, which, you know, if you've got a bit more butt than a skinny person, you need the extra fabric there, right? Anyway, I had a faff about with this, and I would have done it in half the time if I hadn't had to faff about with it. She also suggests hand rolling the hem. Well, you know me, I'm not going to do that, am I? So I ended up just doing a double hem along the hemline, and it's a really long hemline because there are 8 gauze to this skirt, so it's probably more than a circle because it goes around and wraps as well. The seams are French seams, so that's good, because if anyone sees the wrong side, it looks really neat. But I think that's the only good thing I can say about it, really. And yeah, the length of the pattern piece was 28 inches, so I'm not sure how she can claim that the length of the skirt is going to be 30 inches, because the pattern piece would have to be at least 30 and a half, 31 inches to get that finished, unless she's counting the waistband. But I wouldn't count the waistband in the length measurement. Anyway, it's done. Thankfully, it's done. It hurt my brain for a while, and now it's finished. So what else has been going on this week? I've been doing more reading. I finished Past Lying, which is the latest Karen Pyrie, I think it's the latest Karen Pyrie series by Val McDermid. And that was really good. I enjoyed that. And then I had one on hold that was called, hang on a minute, Splinter the Silence. And that is one of her Carol Jordan series novels. And it is a prequel to one I read recently. Literally just the one before, because I could see that where that one left off, the one I read a little while back would follow directly on from that, which of course I cannot remember the name of now. And the funny thing was, I was at the library picking up a hold today, and the hold was a book about sewing bags. Are you surprised about that? No, of course you're not. And I happened to see, as I was browsing the shelves, 2 books by Val McDermid called 1979 and 1989. Sorry about the glare. My ring light likes to shine on everything. Now, I can't remember whether I've read these or not. I had a quick glance at the précis or summary on the inside flap. They're about a character called Allie Burns. And I'm not sure whether I've read these. So I grabbed them anyway. And no doubt as soon as I start reading, the light will dawn. Talking of the light dawning, have you noticed something exciting? If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, like I am, sunrise and sunset are gradually creeping closer towards each other. And I noticed yesterday that at 8:30 it was completely dark here. So 8:07 I think was official sunset here, and yes, it was completely dark by 8:30, and I was so excited about that. The heat and sweatiness and everything of the summer, the dry grass and the suffering trees and everything, it just gets me down after a while. I do love going in the lake. I love soaking up the sun when I'm on the beach and going for a swim, but I hate being hot and sweaty. And to see the forecast temperatures all being under 30 degrees this week, heaven, absolute heaven. We actually had a really good rainy day a few days ago, and it was 17 all day, and it was just, amazing. So it feels like as the nights are drawing in that it's getting closer and closer to crochet blanket season. Dare I say it already? I know it's still August, but I do love crochet blanket season. I do a closet switcheroo twice a year in the spring and fall. And there's just such a nice feeling when I'm bringing down all my winter sweaters from the top shelf of the closet. And I'm sure a lot of you are completely the opposite, but yeah, I really enjoy autumn. What can I say? Well, that was a near emergency. I was down to 3% on battery on my phone. I just realised it looked awfully dark, the screen, and it was on its way out, so I had to run up and get a cord to plug it in. We could have lost you. What was I saying? One of the things I'm going to show you a little bit later on is a very small project that I made with some of the Granny Square all-in-one yarn. I completely got my math wrong last time. I think I said that the top had only used 14 squares and I had 36 left. Well, no. I used 26 squares, which meant I had 34 left. Anyway, I was counting up the squares last night and I thought, this is wrong. But I had a bee in my bonnet about making a crossbody bag that is on the Yarnspirations website. It's a free pattern written specially for the Granny Square all-in-one Granny Square yarn. Only uses 4 squares. And of course I had all the squares already made. So I sewed them together in the right shape and I also crocheted a strap. And then I thought, well, you can't use it without a lining in, can you? So I brought it down here earlier and I've been struggling with how to line it. So I'm hoping that the footage I've already taken will be able to be cobbled together into something coherent, because I had about 3 full starts on it. So we'll see how that's working out in a bit. At this point, I have some hand sewing to do on it, so I'll go into that again a little bit later on in this video. One of the things I have done a little tiny bit on this week was my 10-stitch blanket. This is a Frankie Brown pattern. She has her patterns and designs on Ravelry, and she also has a Ravelry group. This is Ice Yarns, Summer Baby, I think. No, Sweet Baby. And it is a DK weight anti-pilling acrylic. I think I'm using a 4mm needle as per the recommendation on the ball band. And the 10-stitch blanket, a lot of people might have seen the ones which are square, where you start with just a square and then you're going round and around and you're doing 10-stitch rows and short rows to go around the corners, and you just build it up until you've done enough. This is the round version of it. So the yarn's doing the colour changing all by itself, so I don't have to think about that. So while I was at the market on Sunday, I added a little bit to it, and here is where I got to the end of the round where I was doing 4 joining rounds, where you're joining to the previous round, and 1 short row ridge. 4 joining ridges, because it's garter stitch. So 4 joining ridges, 1 short row. So when I hit this marker, I started doing 5 joining ridges and 1 short row. So it wasn't a huge amount of progress, but at least it's coming along, albeit very slowly. It was pretty hot at the market again. At one point I had to put the knitting down because my hands were so sweaty. The nice thing about that farmer's market is that there's a playground and a spray park nearby. So I went over and wet my skirt and I wet my bandana and put it around my neck. so that it wasn't so unbearable. I'm going to leave this here because I probably won't pick it up again for a little while. The other project that's a little bit more active and more current is the Hoodiesaurus, which is another knitting project that I am making with Serta Jewel Spun in Golden Feldspar. That's the colourway. And colours in this yarn are absolutely gorgeous. I've got to the point where, all a little bit messy, there's waste yarn on the sleeve stitches right now and a piece of white yarn where that so I remember which is the right side, because garter stitch looks the same both sides, obviously. So let's see. There we are. That is the hoodie so far. I'm doing it in a toddler 2 to 3 size. This thing comes in 17 sizes. It's by Little Theorem on Ravelry. Was it a paid pattern? I think it was. I think it was a paid pattern. And I can't remember how much it was. So the next step will be add the sleeves, obviously, and add a hood. And the last step is when you've got the hood attached to the top, you do these dinosaur scales down at the back of the hood and the body, which will give it its character. And my deadline for that one is my holiday in October, when I'm going back to see the family. Oh yes, the needles aren't attached to anything, are they? They just ended up on the floor. I'm using my Knit Picks Caspians as usual, because, you know, blue-green is my favourite colour. The market. Let's not talk too much about that. Sunday, I made $14 and I sold 2 items. I had a little bit of a sale because next week's going to be my last one. I'm not going to carry on into September at this farmer's market. And I thought, okay, I was going to just have one sale next week, and this week just gone was going to be a regular Sunday. But I thought, no, I'll see if I can push a little bit more inventory out of the door, the proverbial door, and put $3 off on it, off of everything, something like that. And it did not do the trick, shall we say. So regardless of how much money I brought in, I still went over to the coffee truck guy at about 9:30 and got a nice oat milk latte, like I usually do, from him, because it's nice to have a chat with him, and it's nice to get a little bit of extra caffeine in at the beginning of the morning. But I was a little demoralized by the end of the day. About 1:45, we pack up at 2. About 1:45, my couple of my neighbours nearby was completely sold out, and I just thought, well, they did well. Shame I didn't. Going to go and drown my sorrows in a cup of hot chocolate. And I go back to Coffee Truck Guy, and he just laughs and laughs, because he has not sold a hot chocolate for weeks because it's been so hot. His main seller right now is iced coffee. And I was bemoaning the fact that I hadn't had a good day, and not for any reason apart from the fact that I was obviously ready for a wine. And then he said he wasn't going to charge me for the hot chocolate. I made a comment that I was really happy that he didn't have an upcharge for non-dairy milk. That's a real peeve of mine, when they charge you an extra 80 cents or $1 when you're not having dairy milk. I think that's just criminal. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. But I was telling him that. I said, I'm really glad you don't charge extra for the oat milk. He said, that's okay. I'm not going to charge you for this at all. And I was like, oh, really? Thank you. I felt like crying. it was just a kind act, like a random act of kindness that just made the end of the morning feel so much better. And I felt emotional for about an hour afterwards. I had a swim after because I was so hot. I had to cool off. I drove home, changed out of my damp swimsuit, and just sat in my bedroom for a while and sort of gathered all my feelings back up, because it was just such a well-timed act of kindness on his part. And he won't know how much it meant. He really won't, but it was so nice. I feel like crocheting him a coffee cup now to say thank you. Oh God, we crafters, hey, we're always wanting to make something for people, and any excuse. So now I feel like crocheting him a coffee cup. I was looking at patterns on Ravelry last night, thinking, are any of these just the sort of thing I want to make? And I thought, I don't know if I will. It's Tuesday now, and there's other things I want to make this week as well. So I don't know if it'll happen, but we'll see. I did see a coyote Sunday morning because I'm off out to the market at 7:30 in the morning. It's a quiet day for traffic Sundays because most people aren't heading out to work like they are during the week. And a coyote crossed the road in front of me, and we've been hearing them yip quite a bit this week. So that's been quite interesting. You don't tend to see them much. You do hear them more than you see them, and they're always there. This is why it's not advisable to have an outdoor cat around here. Because if your cat's out, especially overnight, there's a good chance it won't make it till the morning. We've got coyotes, great horned owls, bald eagles. The occasional bear wanders through, although I haven't seen them, even though I've seen the poop. We had the poop just at the top of our garden there once, on our road, our little subdivision. So the proof was there. I know I've been yakking for a bit. I'm not sure how long for, but I'm going to take a break here and pop up and get the potatoes cooked for potato salad for dinner. So the crossbody granny square bag will get some attention a little bit later on today, and I will show you it when it's done. As I had so many of these granny squares made up, I decided to use 4 of them to make something like the Yarnspirations Crossbody bag. It's really, really simple to put together because it's just that square, and 2 on the sides to make this fanny pack bum bag shape. Really easy. So I just joined all this last night, and I did 3 rounds of single crochet around the top with the soft white Super Saver, and I wove my ends in. So it's the right shape for the bag now. I did do a little decrease in here just on that second round because I wanted it to be not pointy outy, but going up straight. So I think I achieved that. I've got the strap ready. I made the strap way shorter than they said, and I also just did single crochet. I did not mess around with any other stitches because I know it will stretch a bit, and because I want it to sit higher up on my body than the pictures of the models in the pattern. Theirs is hanging around by their waist, and I don't want it that high, that low. I want it across my chest. So I made a strap which is ready to sew on, but I think that's going to be the last step. What I want to do first is I thought I'd be brave and see if I could machine sew this zipper on. Now, for some reason, even though this is about 17 inches wide, they only use a 12-inch zipper in the pattern, which means there's going to be mega holes at the end here. So I think I'm going to try and go a little closer to the end because I have a zipper that's long enough. And I need to think about which way I want it. It doesn't really matter which way because I can wear it either way. I don't have to worry about it going in the wrong way. They obviously say to hand sew it in, but I wondered whether I could get away with machine sewing it. I feel like it should be possible. And if I used a fairly long stitch and my cream thread, I think I could probably manage it. I'll just have to trim this so it's not as long. I've already changed my mind on this. I just tried pinning the zipper, which I cut both ends off and I'm now regretting. I tried pinning it to the crochet and I wasn't happy with it. I also managed to stab myself royally on the finger and almost bleed all over my project. And not only that, but I stepped on a pin just now and I got stabbed in the foot. So it's not going too well so far. But what I think I may do instead, rather than trying to machine the zipper to the crochet, I think I'm going to try sewing it to the lining and then hand sew the lining into the bag. I'm just going to do a cut around, sew up the bottom edges, insert the zipper. Well, I think I'll insert the zipper first. It's a weird shape, so my head's struggling to get around it, but I think all I've got to do, cut 2 pieces out, sew the zipper pieces to the top, and I've taken the puller right off, but I'll put that back on later. Hopefully. Hopefully I won't forget to put the puller on. And then I'll sew the seams up, put it inside the bag, and sew it down. I do want this to be symmetrical, so I think I am going to do a snip here and then fold it. As you can see, it's far from symmetrical. I think we might just round this off. Now it's symmetrical. What I'm also going to do, I'm going to add a pocket. I'm just going to cut a little rectangle out of this fabric, which I'll go and do with my rotary cutter and mat, because that way it definitely will be accurate. And I will make a pocket. Let's see, what size do I want it? I want it 6 by 4 inches. Then I want to cut it twice that height, so I want to cut it 8 plus the seam allowance, so 8.5 by 8.5 by 6.5. All right, so my pocket's there. It's got a label on. I didn't really think too hard about where to place it, as long as it was going to be away from the seams and the top hem. Now, normally when you make a bag, if this was the outside, I would put the right side of the zipper down. But of course, it's going to be the other way. This is the lining. You know that expression, measure twice, cut once? Well, I need to think twice, think twice, sew once. I'm regretting cutting some of that zipper off, but oh well. We'll worry about that if and when it causes a problem. Yes, another change of plan. I'm going to put zipper tabs on either end of my zip. Because I don't want to be left with raw bits on my zippers. And I've already cut off the stoppers on both ends. Decision I regretted somewhat. Just going to sew the end of this one together so it doesn't jump around by itself while I'm trying to put the tabs on. Just using two 2" by 1" pieces of fabric to sandwich the end of the zipper. Sewing across. And then push them out, and then I'm just sewing along the very end there where it'll be hidden in a seam to hold the layers together. But I just had to line it, didn't I? But if I get it right, it'll be so much nicer lined. This is really weird because it's completely the opposite to how I would normally do it. So there is my lining. That's my right side. That's my wrong side. And that's the right side of my zipper. So, not sure about that double-sided tape now because it wants to stick to me. So it's going to go in like this. And there's the zipper, and it's going to have to be sewn like that to the zipper. Top stitching is done. Now I just need to remember to leave that open halfway and close it up. Well, I don't really know why I'm turning it right side out, because obviously it's not going to be used right side out. But it looks pretty nice so far. Let's pop it back. Ah, now I've just thought of a snag here. Nope, it'll be fine, because I can, if necessary, I can sew a little way in across the top to hide the stitching on the ends of my, yes, my thingies. Okay, let's see. Actually, before I put it inside, let's see how it looks when I just lay that on the top, like so. Oh, it's way too big. It's massive. Now, why is that? It's got lots of extra space here. Lots of extra space. But then this is stretchy, so maybe that'll be okay. Okay, let's just put it inside and see how it looks. There. So if those ends are going to work like that, then I should be able to work inwards towards the middle. I took some of the depth out of the lining, about 1/2 inch or so. It's still quite roomy, but I don't want to make it too small. So clipping everything in, it looks like it's going to fit pretty well, but I think I'm definitely going to have to hand sew it in to be on the safe side. You will see the back of the fabric through the crochet, but it doesn't look bad. And then once that's done, I'll be able to sew my strap on. To the ends right there. Okay, it's a few hours later. We've been for a walk. I have to confess, we stopped at the supermarket for a bar of chocolate because I've been craving chocolate the last few days. And I have finished my crossbody bag. Before I show you it though, I need to mention a couple of things which I forgot earlier. Firstly, I got hired. I had sent my resume in to Michael's via the website. A week later, I dropped it in at the local store. A couple of days later, I got called in for an interview. I have a job. Isn't that great? I've done the initial stuff online, and they're currently doing a background check to make sure I'm not a convicted criminal. And because I'm not, I'm sure they'll be scheduling me for some shifts soon. So that's good news. And the other news is that I really want to do a make-along. Was it Cheryl who mentioned, possibly on Instagram, that I should do a make-along? I'm sorry, I didn't look back at the comments on the videos from the other day. It may have been on my yarn shorts. Yarn shorts, that does sound funny, doesn't it? It may have been the shorts that was showing off the yarn I had bought for the Technicolor Dream Coat. If it was you, Cheryl, thank you for the good idea, because I think that would be an awesome thing to do. Now, I don't suppose everyone's crazy about the idea of crocheting a huge long coat with a pointy fairy hood on it in multiple colours. On the other hand, it would be a fantastic stash buster, wouldn't it? I went and bought new yarn for it, of course, because I just thought it was time I bought some yarn. I hadn't bought any for a while, and I thought it was time. Plus, I wanted to curate the collection of colours that I used in it so that I had it all planned out ahead of time. Makes a bit of a change from some of my other projects, I have to say. So I could run a make-along from September 1st for the Technicolor Dreamcoat, but that would leave out the knitters and the sewers. So I think we should probably have a Technicolor make-along where you just use a whole ton of colors to knit, crochet, or sew. So it doesn't have to be yarn, it could be fabric. Knit, crochet, or sew something amazingly colorful. And we could do it from September through to the end of the year even. It doesn't have to be a rush. We can give ourselves lots of time. I'm sure some of you crafty people are probably making things for Christmas presents. I don't do that. Unless I do at the last minute. But I never plan ahead for anything like that. Sometimes I decide really, really close to the date that, oh, I wish I had made something for so-and-so, and I wonder if I have time to do it now. And usually it's ridiculously impossible. So I'm not going to make it official as yet. I just want your feedback. Would you join in with a make-along? A colourful make-along? I could come up with some catchy name. I don't know what it's going to be yet. And we could post our pictures on Instagram and use a special hashtag for it. I don't have a Ravelry group, so that's not helpful. But just trying to think of any other ways. If you're not on Instagram, how could you do it? I suppose if you weren't on Instagram, you could email me the pictures at my Stitches and Slapdashery Gmail account, and I could put them on Instagram and credit you. And I don't know if there'd be any prizes for it. I think just the satisfaction of doing it and joining in with the community would be fun. So let me know what you think. I think it'd be fun. I'm going to be crocheting that coat anyway. If you want to join me, that would be fantastic. All right, so the crossbody bag. The lining is admittedly a little baggy. It's a little bit big. I should probably have made more of an effort to make it fit better, but that's what my slapdash. That's my slapdash nature kicking in there. So the pocket works fine. It's a little, yeah, you know, roomy. This thing would take a lot of stuff. If you were the sort of person who liked to crochet or knit while you're walking, this would be amazing. You could put some yarn in there and some needles or a hook and maybe just zip it up almost all the way, but have the yarn poking out and wear it while you were out walking. Or it would be a great travel bag where you can just hold all your valuables really close to your body. My husband, Mr. Stitches, dear Mr. Stitches, always has something to say about these things, and he thought I should put a bunch of bananas in there. What do you reckon? It's kind of a banana shape, isn't it? The hand sewing in went way better than I thought it would. I did it from the outside, obviously. I just got a needle and thread and I sewed just below the very top loops of the last row of single crochet, and the yarn blends really well. You can't even see it because you're pulling it fairly tight and it just sinks into the yarn. And then on the other side, even on the other side, it doesn't really show much at all. I made sure that my stitches were running along really, really, really close to that pink edge. So they're on the white zipper, but butted up against the pink edge. And I was really, really pleased with it. So I just had to be a little careful when I got to these corners because I was trying to keep the two layers separate, but really I needn't have worried too much about it because it's not like anyone's going to ever look into the corners of my bag. Not even me now that it's done. And then I just sewed the straps with a few stitches across here to the second or third row of the single crochet. I think it's the second round of the single crochet, actually. So what would I do differently next time? I like to ask myself that. I think the only thing I would do differently next time is to be a little bit more careful with the size of my lining, but also neaten off my lining on the inside. Even though it's between the layers, the holes in the granny squares are quite large, and if you look carefully you can kind of see where my raw edges are. Just a little. Not so much on this bottom part where there's a nice chunky seam, but along, if you look really closely through the holes, but I don't think anyone's going to be looking at it that closely. So as I said, I did the strap a lot shorter than the pattern said. I'm really happy with how it sits against my body like that. I love that. The models, as I said earlier, the models had the way down here, they had a long strap that was 109 stitches long. Mine's only 63. I just took a tape measure and I put it around from corner to corner of the bag around my back and allowed for the fact that the strap is going to stretch a little bit, but not too much. So I think it's the perfect length. And then you can just unzip it, reach in for your stuff, zip it up again. Don't even have to unzip it all the way if you just want to grab the end of your yarn, do some crochet. So there we go. That was a really nice quick project. Basically a 24-hour project, really, because I only started it last night, I think. So that's all, folks. I think we're completely up to date. Please do comment. I love to hear from you. I always reply to all comments. And I really need to hear from you about the make along and see if you're interested in joining in. And if you've got any suggestions for catchy names for it, that would be good too. I've been trying to think of a word that goes with Technicolor. Technicolor something Mal 2024. I don't know. But I feel like it should have colour in the title, don't you? Thanks for watching. See you again real soon. Bye for now.